Haha, that looks really cute.
Oh, I love it!
Welcome to the Photography Podcast with your host, Mike Cassidy.
Hey, how are you, everybody? My name is Mike Cassidy, and I'm a boudoir photographer from New Jersey, and this is my show. What I do is talk with people who are just starting out on their photography voyages, as well as established pros, to learn about the hurdles they've had to overcome to get their businesses going. I'm looking to bring you personal stories which will help you connect to the fact that you're not alone in your struggles. Along the way, we'll probably have a few laughs, but the goal is to get you some actionable advice to help your business grow. So stay tuned. You never know what you may learn. Oh, hello. Didn't see you there. My name is Michael, and I'm your neighbor. Welcome to March. I had a little bit of a break the first couple of weeks, so what have I been up to? Well, I've been working on my beach photography website and getting it ready for this upcoming summer and putting some photos I took last summer, updating my galleries and tidying things up on that website a little bit, because before you know it, summer's going to be here again, and very strange business, beach photography. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's just like a few short weeks in the summer, all these people descend on the Jersey Shore for these family vacations out of the blue. It's like the short, frantic demand for beach photos, and the calendar flips to September and everybody vanishes. It's very, very strange. You know, the weather is still warm and beautiful, but there's just nobody around. Where the week before there was like tons of people here. It's a strange scene, man. You know, someone flips on the lights and all these people scatter like roaches. But it's fun to do that for that short time. But let's get back to talking about websites a little bit. You know, as a photographer, your website is part of your job. Your website is your storefront. Updating content is part of your job. You've got to keep updating images. And browsing around, the number one thing I see missing on people's websites is like their location. It's very strange. You know, great, you're a family photographer, but like, where the hell are you located? Colorado? I don't know. You don't put your location anywhere. It's a little odd. So just make sure you have your location on your website where you're working from. You know, and website takes a few hours a month probably to keep it updated and do whatever maintenance you have to do on there. And you got to do it. I mean, that's not even to mention blogging, which is a whole nother episode of stuff going on, you know? So you got to stay in there and keep your content fresh, because it will pay dividends for you. And your appearance is everything. It's all people see about you, you know, so it's important. I know it's expensive to hire a web guy, you know, but if you can't do that yourself, you really gotta do it. It pays dividends. And what else is going on? I have way too many sessions scheduled for this spring so far. I'm sitting here in the quiet before the storm. I have a bunch of brides, and I have a bunch of like BFF sessions. I do these sessions where two friends come in and they share a session together. So that started that a couple of years ago, and now that's a thing. And that's fine with me, because it's like killing two birds with one stone. Two women come in, and I get to do that. So I have a couple of these friend sessions booked, and I'm going crazy now up through June, you know. So that's about it for now, and as far as me goes. So what else is going on? Well, if you have any questions about this show, or you want to reach out and send me an email, you can hit me at mike@mikecassidphotography.com. And for more information on any of the guests or these episodes, you can visit the website at thephotographypodcast.show, and you'll see all further details and photos and stuff on there about our guests. But anyway, my guest today is Laymon. She's a super boudoir photographer from Wilmington, North Carolina, and we had a good old general conversation a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how boudoir photographers like had to learn and had to get their start in the days before the internet really became a thing and there was this abundance of information. She also has to deal with a little bit of a conservative clientele, so we covered that a little bit, and we also talked a bit about how to find the right balance between you and pushing your client a little bit, how to push them just a little bit to bring in a little bit of excitement to their session. So it's a lot of good stuff in this episode, and I'll shut up now and give it a listen, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks. And you are on. Dana, you're live now. And I had a cute picture. They took it out of here. I wanted to share, and it was just your latest Instagram picture. And I was going to say the one you're sitting on the couch with the official Instagrammer, 2 hands on the coffee mug, looking very happy. So now you're officially an influencer when you hold a cup of coffee like that. It means you've arrived. You're
right.
Where
That's
it's
what
at.
Everybody does.
And you're just very relaxed, very happy. I was going to say, boy, look at you. You're just like so smiley and so happy. And I was like, boy, I don't kind of look that happy when I'm sitting on my couch. But nice to have you on. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me. And, lately this has been a lot of fun to do, talking about people, and mostly boudoir photographers I talk to, but it's been a little bit of everything. So we'll cover a little bit of ground here as far as how you got started and so forth. So first of all, just take a moment to introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Dana Laymon. I am based in Wilmington, North Carolina. So beautiful beach town. I love it here. And I have been here for about 15 years now and been shooting or doing photography, almost that long. I've been doing it ever since I was in college, interned with a wedding videographer when I was maybe my senior year of college, and then just kind of took off from there. I went into corporate America for a little bit, but was really grateful for that time. I learned a lot, but still always had the bug for photography, could not get rid of it, always knew that's what I wanted to do, just trying to figure out how to make that happen as a living especially, and took photography classes whenever I could. And did wedding photography initially, and then found my way into boudoir photography, which I also always knew I wanted to do, just didn't know how to get there.
Right.
And so that's what I'm doing today. I'm a full-time boudoir photographer. I've been married for, 12 years now. We just had our first little girl in April. Thank you. So she's definitely added some interesting,
nice. Yes.
Yeah, some interesting things to the mix. Been trying to figure out how to balance work and motherhood and marriage, but it's been really good. Thankfully, my studio, which I'm talking to you from right now, is at my house. So I don't have to go too far and can work from home. So that's a blessing. But yeah, I'm shooting boudoir now and trying to be a mom and do all the things.
Keeping it all together. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where you mentioned that you wanted to talk about a little bit is making that jump. And we'll get into that a little bit in the future. But one thing I like to do with everybody is we're going to go back in time, Dana. Oops, I hit the wrong button on my thing. I don't know what I'm doing. We didn't want laughs.
We'll take it.
I'll edit that. And we can't stop it. It was supposed to be my nice harp. And now it's not stopping. Oop, there it goes. Cut that out. We'll fix that in the afterwards. Take that out. So we're going back in time. So that's the sound of us going back in time. And so go back to, you said initially you had some idea, but you wanted to get into photography when you were in school. And so how did you make that jump, or what was the approach where you said, this is something I want to get a little bit more involved in? And you said you went right into the wedding photography business. How did that come about initially?
So I have this weird, strong left brain, but really a strong right brain as well. And I'm a risk taker, but I'm not a risk taker. I'm creative, but I'm really type A. So it's kind of a hard thing to work through as an entrepreneur, but I wanted to play it safe and went to school here in Wilmington for business. Thought that was a safe thing to do. You know, got to make a living, got to do what everybody expects you to kind of do. But I had always grown up doing photography. My mom was a photographer on the side,
really?
Always took pictures. I always had a camera growing up. My first one was like this little Mickey Mouse teeny tiny camera that I probably got from Disneyland or Disney World.
I think I know that camera, yeah.
Yeah, just old school film camera. And I just remember shooting from that day. Like, loved it. Always watched my mom take pictures and just thought that was a lot of fun. I just loved kind of capturing life in those moments growing up.
It's a long history. This was not something
Yeah.
you woke up one morning and were like, boy, this is something I'm going to do. You had been doing it pretty much your entire life or a long time.
Yes.
To that point. And so when you mentioned getting out of school, that wasn't what you did first, though. You decided you need to go and work in corporate USA.
Yeah, so there were kind of a lot of things playing to that. So I got married right out of school and, you know, we wanted a place to live. We thought we needed to get good jobs and start a family.
Money is important because bills have to get paid.
Money is important. I know. So I used that business degree and went into corporate America, into HR, and did that for a few years. I learned a lot from that. You know, it was helpful that I worked for a big company and definitely met a lot of people. So that helped for sure. But like I said, my senior year in college, I interned, and it was actually a business internship for a wedding videographer here in town. And that was super helpful because that was the first time I had seen somebody in that like creative space make a living at something fun and creative and something that was her passion, and was like, wow, this is possible. She was shooting weddings in the area, and I just thought, she's doing it. I mean, she was hustling. She was doing all the things. It was kind of one of those pull back curtain moments where you're like, she seems like she has it all together. She has this website, but at her house, she was just scrapping it, you know, making it work. Yeah. But she was doing it and she loved it. And I thought that was
you wanted a piece
just really eye-opening.
Yeah, you wanted to be part of that. Was there a job ad or somehow did you come across that, or did you just randomly come across her, or don't you even remember?
Gosh, I feel like it was through our college kind of job board, online job board. And there was, you know, internships listed on there, and that's how I found her. And I thought, wow, this is sort of the creative area that I want to be in, but I can pass it off as a management internship. And so that's what I did. And thankfully, she even asked me to start shooting weddings with her. She was like, do you want to shoot weddings while I'm there with her? And I'm looking to add photography into my business, actually, and see if this is something I want to offer. And would you want to kind of try it out with me? And I was
you
like,
became her
yes.
photographer. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had done also mentioning like not being able to shake the bug. Besides doing like the business school thing, I was like, well, let me try out all the photography classes I can. So I tried to take a bunch of classes here in Wilmington, anything that I could find. And it wasn't a lot, especially, you know, 12, 15 years ago. And so I ended up doing summer sessions at Parsons School of Design in New York, because
that's a long way to go.
It was, but I thought, as a summer semester, I could knock it out, see if this is something I really liked. I learned a lot, and that was really helpful. So just doing little things like that to kind of flush out if this is something I really wanted to do. It was still film at the time, so digital hadn't really come around. I mean, because the first few weddings I shot were film, and so that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I just... You know, it was a passion. I didn't want to let it go. So it was just constantly exploring.
You worked hard for it, yeah. And then when you got in there, you realized you liked it. So how long did that last, or how long were you shooting weddings for at that point?
So when I started shooting weddings, I was still shooting for a year or two with the wedding videographer. She took me on, which was great, as her kind of photographer for the business. And then after 2 years, she ended up moving to LA. And so I thought this is a great time to sort of spin off and start my own business because I had had experience through her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of knew the ins and outs and felt like I could just start my own business. And that was 2009.
Talk about going back in time now. I have to play the harp sound again. We were lost. Go back.
And, but that was also right after I graduated. And so I still took the corporate job, but was shooting weddings on the side.
Part-time. Yeah. Well, it's a good part-time job. Now, that's also, too, it's very specific. You have to know all those shots. And did you know anything about the wedding poses or so? Did she school you in that? Did she give you an education on we have to do this pose, you have to get the bride doing this? And was there kind of a shot list and you were like, okay, I can handle this? Or did you walk in there more just like taking whatever pictures and kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that you got what you needed?
Yeah, I kind of knew, but she did help a lot. Having shadowed her when she was doing weddings for a video at the time, that helped a lot. But yeah, she was, shooting video when I was there shooting photo. And so she was right there alongside me to help. Yeah, we sort of, you had the same goal in mind, photographer, videographer. So we were there together shooting a lot. And she definitely took me by the reins and helped me with that. And then when online courses started becoming a thing, I was really diving into that and trying to learn that way too.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing because I had started in the late 90s myself, and I guess at that time the internet was new. There wasn't a YouTube. There wasn't a lot of places to go online. I think now every time you turn around, there's an expert here, there's an expert there trying to tell you how to do your business. So I think obviously it was tougher because you had to kind of find your own way, and it was a little bit more difficult to learn at that part. And so how long did you wind up lasting there doing the wedding before you made the switch?
I shot weddings for 8 years, we'll say 8.
That's a long time.
I was in corporate America for about 5.5. So I shot weddings full time 2 years after that. And then, wanted to start thinking about having a family. And I just didn't see that happening when I was working and traveling every weekend. Exactly. And just so busy. And so I knew I wanted to change that. And definitely talked to my husband many times about it. How can we make this work? What do we think this looks like? Where do we want to go from here? And I sort of just spent a year really building up that side of my business. And it was nice working with brides because those are a lot of my clients now anyways, and getting the word out and taking that year to kind of pivot over and then just made the cut. It was my website for Boudoir went live Valentine's Day. I don't even know, 3 or 4 years ago now. But yeah, never looked back, never been happier. I knew it was what I wanted to do for so long, but when the word boudoir doesn't even exist back then and you don't have kind of a name to put to it, you don't know what you don't know really.
Right. So, and then you made that transition, and what was that like, just stopping work, like one day deciding that, all right, boss, good news, bad news. Bad news for you is I'm not coming in anymore. Good news is I think I'm going to be a lot happier doing what I'm doing. So what was that transition like, or what kind of decision process goes into that? Because it's an important one. It's rough to do that.
Yeah, I would call it scary, exciting.
Right.
It was a good scary, and I think that was the sign that I knew I was doing the right thing and what I really wanted to do for so long. Weddings were fun, and I enjoyed them, but there was always this, level of stress there that I don't think was healthy for me, and I don't think was like a good stress. And I knew switching over to Boudoir, the stress was there, but it was a good stress. It wasn't too much. And it was a scary, exciting. I mean, I was excited to do it. I knew I wouldn't mind putting in the work to make it happen.
Right.
And I had never really felt that way before.
And you knew that was something you want to switch to. Okay, so let's fast forward a couple weeks or a couple months, maybe in your case, and now you're shooting women. And so you're like, okay, what do I do now? And did you start advertising for that? Or did you already have some women from your wedding business and you kind of said, psst, come over this way, I'm going to start doing this? Or did you have some people already kind of in your funnel to get you started?
Well, it definitely helped having been in the wedding industry and then having a circle of people I knew from my corporate job. So it was a matter of, putting the word out to all my wedding vendor friends, letting them know this is what I was doing now. I would love to work with their brides if they know anybody that was interested, to definitely spread the word. Did as much networking as I could in that area. And then it just kind of branched out into other businesses that I thought would align with my business. So if there were spas in the area,
you hit them up for referral.
Yeah, some lingerie stores. You just sort of make partnerships and relationships with them. Definitely the hair and makeup artists, since they play a big part in what I do. And it was just building upon that just in a different way. Wedding vendors are
makeup
huge
artists. That's a big part of the wedding industry too, because brides and makeup artists, that's a whole team together. So I guess you met some people from the wedding days that were working in the makeup industry, because it's really important to have good makeup artists in boudoir, because that's a big part of it. That whole makeover, that's I think the foundation of making people feel like, oh, this is a new me, or I never looked like this. So that's important, I think, personally, in doing women's photography. So knowing some of those folks, so that's a good starting point. I don't know if you would agree or not with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've worked with quite a few of the hair and makeup artists in town. And I think with any boudoir photographer, you're super picky about, your hair and makeup and the look that you want your clients to have, and you want them to feel comfortable. So I do have a few that I work with in particular that I love, and just having worked with them before, especially on weddings, is a big help to see how they talk to clients and work with brides and make them feel comfortable, but then especially their work, and does it align with what you want?
That's right, because not only is a makeup person there to do makeup, but they also have to be this calming force, because they're usually the first person that they meet walking through the door. So not only are they doing the makeup, but they have to be, everything's going to be okay. You're going to make it all right. So it's more than just makeup. So you need someone who's also a good psychologist. And I found that not everybody can do that. So they need to be that foundation for your customers too, because they're setting you off in a direction, and then they got to understand that, and not everybody does. So yeah, that's super important for makeup people. So going to keep you right in this time frame, and it's always a fun question to ask people if they remember their first boudoir session that they did, and how bad was it? How did that? Do you remember anything about that? That it's all right. You can let it out now, Dana. You're just with friends now. So
yeah. So there's two instances, and they weren't horrible. One is more funny. I mean, to say that I knew that this is what I wanted to do, even though the word boudoir didn't really exist, goes back to when I was in high school, and I would get my younger sister to
pose for you,
dress up, and just put on, not lingerie, we were, 15, but just put on a bathing suit and a lace kimono or a fur jacket, and we would just be on vacation somewhere. Yeah, and I would just make her model for me all the time. I didn't know why. I didn't know what I was necessarily going for, but I knew that that's what I wanted to shoot. And I thought, maybe I could shoot for Victoria's Secret one day. Maybe I'll shoot for Sports Illustrated one day, because that was really, fashion. And then those routes was kind of the only thing out there.
Because there wasn't anything else. That's the only direction that kind of went in. That model type work. Yeah, exactly.
So I just thought, I'll work for Victoria's Secret or do something, like that one day. So that was always fun. Love to pull those pictures back out, but she'd probably kill me. And then professionally, I was in our first house when we got married, and we had a split floor plan, which worked really well. So our bedroom was on one side, and then I used the other two bedrooms on the other side of the house as my office and studio. And I just had my brides, just started asking them, this is something I really want to do. Would you, let me do a session for you? And they would come over, and it was girls that I knew from my corporate days that I worked with that I thought, would be really fun and would like to do it. And then a couple of them were my brides at the time, who I thought would be interested, and just started doing that to build my portfolio. And those pictures are funny too.
We all have to start somewhere, and I think I like to ask that question to people, or sort of get their the details from that, because it's not easy. And it takes a lot of work to learn how to work with women, I think, successfully, especially if you're going to start having people hand money over if you've never done that before. And I think the point being is now a lot of people say, ooh, I'm going to start doing women's photography, go on Amazon, buy camera. Now I'm a pro. I'm going to start charging people. But it's one of the more difficult things to do. And I don't think anybody starts off being an ace at it. It's a long learning path. And you bring those first people in, and I know I had no idea what I was doing, and you're trying to figure it out along, and then you get a little bit more comfortable as you get along. And what I did was kind of, okay, I'm just going to learn how to do one thing really well first, and then add on another pose and maybe a third pose, and do it little by little. But all my beginning photos are all long gone from computer crashes and viruses, and so thankfully
that might be a good thing.
I don't have to go back and look at them, but I know it wasn't anything. Like if I did look at them now, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe I actually, it's a long journey from here to there. But it is hard to do. So that's why I think a lot of people, it's interesting to hear their story. And a lot of people are like, it was a nightmare. But somehow, everyone's got to start from somewhere. So did you have a lot of that sort of like just, all right, I really don't know what I'm doing, but you're keeping up like a face of where, oh yeah, don't worry about this. This is going to turn out fine. So did you have like a plan, or did you just jump right in and cross your fingers and kind of, or were you charging these women, or were they coming in just volunteering, which I guess makes it easier?
Yeah, I think the first few times, maybe the first year when I, wasn't quote unquote offering it as a service, just to kind of build my portfolio, I just had them come in. I said, bring, some outfits. We'll just play around. I did bring in, actually, the first few, I didn't even have hair and makeup. And looking back at that, I think, wow, what a difference, that would have made, in their experience, and then in the images. But posing, I always kind of felt really comfortable with, but it was more about being comfortable with myself, knowing what I was doing, offering that great experience, getting them to feel comfortable. And so I think that only comes with time and experience.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Like even from
you had a good time.
Those sessions, I knew that I wanted to do more of that. So even though, of course, for everybody, it's sort of awkward and you stumble through it, as with anything you kind of do for the first time. But I was hooked after that. I really was.
You were having fun, because it can be. Because sometimes when you realize you're sitting in there in the room with a woman and she doesn't know what's going on, so she's looking at you like you're supposed to know everything that's happening, and you're just like, okay, what do I do next? So it can be. Because I think if you start to get the sense that you don't know what you're doing, they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. And Boudoir is all about creating that sense of, they have to be relaxed and that I think otherwise you get that weird look in their face and things don't kind of go the way that you think. So it does take a little bit of practice to do this. And it's also, you mentioned working at home, which is great. Because also too, having buildings and stuff is expensive, and it's a lot of extra. I know up here in the Northeast, renting space is a small fortune. It's not inexpensive to do. So I used to work from my from home all the time and bring people in on a giant slider in my one bedroom, and there was plenty of light, and I kind of made that room up like you did. And I think a lot of people start that way, and you work with what you have, and that's great. You make do with the space that you have there. And then what sort of came next after you stumbled through your first few people? Did you sit back and say, there may be something to this? And then what did you do from there?
Yeah, I mean, in my, pricing guides and my offerings and on my website, I just started offering it as a service, let my brides know that was something they could hire me for. And it took off pretty quickly. I mean, because I was, even though I was working full time in corporate America, I was working full time as a wedding photographer. So I, had 25
full-time
weddings.
jobs.
Yeah. And so I had a lot of clients to sort of reach out to and help spread the word. And so, a couple would do it here and then a couple more. And it was definitely helpful with word of mouth to kind of get their friends in doing it. And it just kind of went from there.
And your first people were mostly brides, so that's how you did it, word of mouth from the photography
brides and just a couple coworkers. So thankfully I knew them, and that made it a lot easier to kind of learn from those first few sessions. They knew it was a learning experience.
Yeah, so they were more patient with
exactly.
They were a little bit more forgiving, and they let you experiment a little bit.
Yeah, they both knew we were just going to have fun and try this out. And since they were getting a service for free, they were very gracious. And it was new to everybody at the time, so long ago. And so they really had nothing to compare it to, I would say.
Right. Yeah.
And so each session got better. I mean, you just practice, and keep bringing people in and trying different outfits and poses and learning. And that's what I wanted to do. Like, I just wanted to keep getting better, especially knowing this is something I wanted to do full time, at least, offering it to the clients I had. And so it was just kind of building from there.
And you mentioned practice, and see, this is where I'm one of these maniacal type people, obsessives, where you have to learn something. And I've told this story before in other shows, but when I was more or less just friends of friends at first, for me too, I was doing some pictures, and then she goes, "Oh, my friend liked them. Will you do them for her?" And I'm like, I don't know. But I would obsess with that. All right, the first time someone offered me money, I'm like, they're giving me money. I better know what the hell I'm doing, because, I don't, at that point, you're still like, I really don't know what's going on. So I would study. And this is just when the internet and Flickr, and I would look at other people's pictures and go, oh my God, how can I do this? And I actually had mannequins. I would lay these mannequins out and practice, because I figured, how could I get people there whenever I wanted to? But the mannequin was something you could lay down. It was as weird as it was. I had these mannequins, and I would pose them and try to and do all this, because I had to at least had some level of competence, and I could go back and load those pictures on my computer and say, oh, this didn't work right, or I have to move a light over here, and just do it till I was like, okay, this looks like it was semi-okay. Was there any kind of routines or how did you, from that beginning part, was there anything that you special that you did to make sure that you were okay?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, before, like you said, Pinterest and YouTube and all that, my thing was collecting Victoria's Secret magazines, and I would buy the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition and just study them. Yeah, I mean, and it was probably weird to other people why I had stacks of those.
Right.
But it was just so fascinating to me. And that was really how you learned. I mean, where else would you get kind of flattering poses like that would work for a lot of different people? And gosh, what was the other thing? And then they would have they started having specials about shooting the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition on TV.
Yeah. And it was like on HBO or something like back then. I remember that. I do remember
looking
like
forward
glued to that.
Watching. Yeah.
Right.
And,
yes.
How the photographer interacted with the model. What kind of lighting and scrims were they using? How, what time of day were they shooting? And I just thought that was the most fascinating thing.
Because that's what there was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we made the most of that little. Now, do you think that probably little to none of that really applied? Because I wish we were out on beaches.
Yeah.
And, and but you're right. And that's what there was. And it's interesting how people, were looking for almost anything that they could find to use as to kind of as a learning tool in that regard. So that's interesting that you did that. So once you were moving along and that business started going, and I guess how did you bring in extra people? Did you have to start advertising at all, or was it just more word of mouth that the people started finding you?
Thankfully, I haven't had to pay for advertising. Gosh, if any, very little. I mean, I've experimented with a few Facebook ads here and there and not really seen success with them, but I just really worked on making my client experience amazing and working on getting referrals from those clients. And I still keep in contact with all my wedding vendor friends. You know, I'm still working on building relationships with people in similar industries. So I just really, I mean, I don't know if it's like a good thing or a bad thing, but I really keep up those relationships and work on referrals. I still believe in blogging. Social media is great, but the visibility you get, you know, of course, is going down. Every
it certainly
day.
is. Yeah.
So that's difficult, but, you know, having Google be my friend and working on, you know, your website presence and the blog and then your referral base and the clients that you have, thankfully, has kept me going.
Yeah, and I was looking at your blog a little bit, which I was going to talk to you about. And you're right about something like Instagram now, and I mentioned this before, where every boudoir tag is blocked. Tagging things make no difference. And then again, I think they're going to that whole Facebook mode, what they did with the Facebook pages, where they're showing it to fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer people. And I think Instagram, too, is running a little bit out of steam now, where you don't get as many people follow. It's a fatigue. I think there's a certain level of fatigue, and then you're playing by their rules. Whereas your own website, you know, no one's going to stop you from posting whatever you want on there and writing whatever you want. You can write as much as you want. And the interesting thing I saw on your blog was a lot of like testimonial content from some clients. And how do you do that? Are you sending them a questionnaire or interviewing them, or how do you go to get them to partake in that part of your business?
So once their session is done, and I do an in-person photo reveal once their images are ready. So they come in for their photo reveal, they pick out, you know, the gifts and pictures that they want. And so once that's done and their experience with me has kind of come to a close, I do send them a questionnaire and just tell them what a great experience I had with them, what a pleasure it was getting to know them. And then I send them a questionnaire, just really genuinely wanting their feedback on what it is that I can do better. If anything, you know, what did they see differently about themselves, like a before and after, what led them into my studio. And the questions just kind of trickle down from there into their experience and into a sort of a review format. So why were they interested in coming in for a session? How did they feel before coming in? You know, how did they see
So you're giving
themselves?
them a questionnaire. You're giving them a questionnaire, or at least certain questions, and looking for feedback on that. Is it in person, or are you emailing that to them, or they do
it goes out in an email. Just a few days after they've come in for their photo reveal. And then once they submit that, I kind of put it together in paragraph format and just say, hey, thank you so much for filling this out. I really appreciate, you know, hearing your feedback on your session. This is something I would love to share online, on my website and social media and with my clients. Is it something you're okay with me posting? And 99% of the time they say yes. And then I, after that, let them know it would be great if they kind of copied and pasted it, you know, as a Google review or a Facebook review, and kind of ask them to do that afterwards. But yeah, getting the reviews and testimonials has been really helpful.
It's hard to do. I think it's tricky. It's not, hunting people down isn't always that, you know, they're very excited and they want to do it, but, you know, people are busy and like, oh, I'll do this later. So it is some work, I think, chasing those people down sometimes, but it's great social proof. Especially when it's on your website and your blog, because it's so prevalent and people can read through that and say, wow, this looks genuine. And from what I saw, it looks very genuine from what these people have written. And that really, I think, has a big impact on people reading that to say, wow, she looks like this is going to be the place for me. So I think that's a good strategy, but it's tough getting, I think, those reviews.
One thing that is included in that questionnaire is their permission for me to use their images. So it's beneficial and important for them to open it and fill it out. And so that is also like a motivation for them to return that questionnaire to me.
To you.
They have just seen their images, so it's fresh in their mind.
Right.
You know, their gallery, whether they've chosen to buy all of them or not, but at least we've gone through them together, and they can let me know on that questionnaire, I only want you to use, the anonymous shots. I only want you to use the modest shots. Yes, You're free to use everything. So that does help having that.
You give them levels. You give them different levels on there, and you just say you can use these type, this type, this type, and then they're okay with they offer you a certain level of photo that they can
Exactly.
use.
Yeah. As easy as you can make it for them, filling that any questionnaire out, the better. So they're pretty good about discerning that. Because I do try and just give them quick categories and then quick review statements to fill out as far as what their experience was like with me, and so that's really helpful.
Yeah, that's a good system to use. Reviews are a very powerful tool, and then blogging is very underestimated, and the trade-off there is it's a lot of work.
Yes.
Besides doing the pictures and doing this and running your day, you have to allocate that time, whether it's once a week or once a month or whatever, and it takes a long time to write things and put that together. So people, and I'm guilty of that as well, easily that just gets pushed to the bottom of the pile, but it is a good tool, and you just have to stick with it and keyword blogging, and people can find you, and it just is really a bonus for anybody to do that, because no one's going to come along and suddenly say, oh, you can't post this, or this is not friendly for our community, this type of. So you could put whatever you want on there, and no one's going to tell you it's your content, and you own it, unlike an Instagram or a Facebook, which constantly just is fewer and fewer. They let fewer and fewer, like, kind of a range of content. It seems they're really narrowing it down, the things that they'll post. And actually, there's a funny story just this weekend. Now I guess they're all using like artificial intelligence to scan photos, and I was posting an Instagram story, and it was just, I was sitting at my desk here, and I had one of my galleries open, and I was scrolling through it, and I was doing something, wow, look at all the photos I've been working on. It was just my own photo scrolling, and I put some music behind it, and I was trying to post the video, and then I noticed I get this red exclamation point, like, this is all copywritten material, you cannot post this on Instagram. I'm like, this is my own like galleries, and it's, I guess they're trying to guess now what you're doing, and it just blocked me. It wouldn't even let me post my own. And it says if you want to, I forget what I'm trying to say. If you want to like say this was incorrect, you can file this claim against this. I'm like, this is an Instagram story. I'm not filing a claim against my own material. So I think it's just going to get harder, especially for like boudoir type photographers to get their content on there. And I also noticed Pinterest is dead when it comes to boudoir. And I used to get like literally thousands of people from Pinterest. I was an avid poster, and they've hidden anything with boudoir from search results. It's all gone. Like if you go to a person, and like if you have it and I find you by your name, you'll see the photos under there, but they do not show up in like feeds or anything anymore, or hashtags. So my traffic from Pinterest literally went to zero.
Wow.
Over like the past 2 years. So they're just really cutting down. And I don't think it's a person sitting in a room doing that, but it's just they're programming these computers to say, all right, this is a woman. She has no clothes on. No one can see this, and they're really like, it's going to be tougher to kind of bring people in from these other websites. So I think photographers have to really do their own work on their own turf.
Yeah.
That way no one can stop them from doing that.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see, a resurgence in the whole blogging world come back around, because people are going to get frustrated that somebody's controlling what it is that they see. And then businesses are already getting frustrated with that, choosing who can see their work, especially boudoir photographers, with, us being limited to what we're even allowed to post. Right. So I do think blogging is really important. You may not think it's super relevant right now, but I know that, I ask every single one of my clients how it is that they found me, and it's either referral or Google. And so I know that it's working. It's important.
And then they find you in that way. And then, you mentioned too, in the email that you sent me, that you don't even post a lot of gallery photos on your website. And I looked through it too, and you may have a dozen, maybe there's 10 on there. Mm-hmm. And what's your thoughts behind that, or what was the reason why you kind of really pared that down?
So I'm probably the most conservative boudoir photographer out there as far as just my philosophy and my thoughts on sharing my images. I, in general, am a super conservative person, and just think that those types of images are really special and important to my client, and just have a feeling about the wrong person seeing those images. You know, the internet is great for some things, but not everything. And it's kind of scary to me where those images might go, who can see them. So I do not share or don't even make like client galleries to send to clients. Everything is done in my studio. They're given a thumb drive, you know, they're getting a physical copy of their image, what have you. So I don't know. I just have like this gut.
It was more of a personal decision.
It's a personal decision.
It was just that you want to keep this private.
It's a personal decision. I wouldn't want my own images out there. And I do have clients who let me share their images. Of course, I've shot models for portfolio building and whatnot. And I just choose to share the more conservative images. And it is a huge challenge for me, but I take it as a challenge. And let's see if I can do this, you know, sharing more of me. You know, people are booking me because of the way that I make them feel, for the experience that they get with me. So I do have to work to build that trust and put a lot of myself out there, which I think a lot of boudoir photographers have to do, you know, because especially if you're booking a male, you know, do I like him? Do I trust him? Am I okay with going to his studio? And so that's just a personal decision that I made, and
it's worked. Yeah.
It's worked.
Yeah. Now I didn't know whether it was, and you mentioned too, that was a bit more of a conservative area. So I was just curious if you had some negative feedback.
We the Bible Belt down here
from the community. Well, the one thing, and I don't know how it's affected you or people down south. Again, I'm in the epicenter of evil up here, close to New York, and almost anything goes. But you know, I just found too that, you know, there's been such a change. It's talking about Instagram and stuff, where it used to be like people, oh my God, you see me in a bra, that's like the end of the world. But now there's women, I always say, even in the sessions when they're with me, like with their taking pictures, and yes, just Saturday or Sunday with it, she's taking her own selfies and sharing them in the middle of the session. So I think it's somewhat less of a thing now to see that, and it's more open. That's in a way, but in this area, like I said, and it can vary from, I guess, from part to part of around the country. Is it still a little bit taboo, or is it something that that people don't want to talk about in that area, or what's your feeling on that? Do you have your customers live streaming themselves? Dana, are they live streaming themselves?
No, I mean, people do not want others to know necessarily that they've done a session. Like when I say I get a lot of referrals, they are picking and choosing, you know, who they tell. But it's definitely still a
little bit
area. I don't necessarily tell everybody what I do. You know, I pick and choose, you know, who I openly tell. A lot of people just
leading
know
a secret evil life. You are leading us. Oh my goodness. Little do they know what's happening inside of that house.
I know. All my neighbors, you know, I'm up here.
Like they're whispering. They're looking through their curtains going, oh my God, what you doing in that house? These women coming and going. Oh my God. Yeah, I can get it. Yeah. And how there are completely different philosophies from section to section in this country, and what really is not a big thing in one part of the country and the other part can be a little bit more scandalous, and which makes it tougher, you know, for people, because you want to promote your business, but you have to operate within sort of the bounds and the mores of that area. And who, though, are your clients? What would you say? Who are the people that are coming to see you? Are they younger or older, or what kind of client mix do you have walking through the door?
So I have about two main people who are coming to see me. So they're fairly young brides, I would say like 25 to 30, early 30s, who are definitely doing it for their wedding. And so I get a lot of those young brides. And then, which it's funny because my wedding client is definitely my boudoir client in that way. So really nothing about that has changed. It's still the same girl, very similar to me, I would say, we get along really well. I just know how to communicate and kind of interact with them and make them feel comfortable. And then the other client is usually, I would say, a young mom, 35 to 40, just trying to get herself back, trying to get back into her life with maybe this new body and these, kids that she's now having to take care of, and trying to just do more things for her at this stage in her life. So that has been really fun because now I'm in that stage where I wasn't before. And so it's been really nice to be able to relate to them more and know what it is they're going through. And I just love being able to get to help them because I know from experience it's something that I would definitely need and want at this point.
Yeah, and it's tough, and especially as I think, well, it's all a lot of women, but as they get older, I think people get a little bit more self-conscious, and it can help on that front, having that connection with somebody. And yes, I understand, and we handle this way or handle this that way. And so, how do you deal with people who really have concerns about their body, but still want to do a photo shoot?
I think from them seeing my images, so when I start talking to somebody, I do send them a full gallery so that they're able to get a true idea of my work. And I think from that, plus, the testimonials they've seen from other people kind of puts them at ease, and to let them know that they can wear anything that makes them feel comfortable, anything that makes them feel beautiful. It can be a sweater, a sundress, jeans, a kimono, the bed sheets, whatever. So, and they can cover up to their comfort level. Not every single client has to wear the same thing, do the same poses. So we try and make the experience custom for each person. What are they comfortable with showing? What have they gone through in their life? What are they trying to get out of the session? What types of outfits, do they see themselves in? And I do ask them in like a little pre-session questionnaire, what do they love about their body? What are some things they're looking forward to showing off? What are they wanting to get out of the session? How do they see themselves in the session? Like, what words do they use? Like, is it sexy? Is it girl next door? Is it vixen? Is it bombshell? Is it beautiful mother of four? It could be anything. So that definitely helps too.
The people, you think your clients are fairly conservative too? Does anybody really walk in there and say to you, Dana, guess what? That's what we're going today. And you're like, oh my goodness. Or is it pretty much all kind of, exactly where that session's going to go, and they're all looking to do things that are a little bit more standard boudoir-ish? Yeah,
I think they're pretty standard. I think when you look at boudoir photographers as a whole, my client is probably a little bit more conservative. I don't know. And I would say conservative, like, as a person, their images come out beautiful, and sometimes I'm super surprised at the outfits that they bring in and the poses and things they're wanting to do. And so it's fun to get people who are not stuck in that box, even though we kind of are in the area that we're in. And so it's fun. I think that's what makes it even more fun, actually, is getting those girls in here. And for them, this is totally outside of their comfort zone.
What they do would never consider doing anything like that. And you're right. And that's a big misconception, I think, about what we do, is it's not necessarily about people just taking everything off. I don't think that necessarily makes it better.
Yeah, I agree.
Personally, like, I'd rather keep people white shirts on and stuff. Button-down blouses.
Man, I love a bed sheet.
Prettier. I think you get more mileage from that, and those photos tend to work out better in the long run. But I think people do sometimes think that, wow, this is just everything's going to be out there, and that's not necessarily the case. So I think sticking with that middle ground is much better long term. That's where most people live anyway. There's fewer people on the fringes, and so sticking there in that middle ground, people have a better level of comfort coming in and explaining to them, no, you don't have to take everything off. We're not going to be doing things that you don't want to do. But I noticed definitely here again in the past 10 years, there has been a hard veer to doing things that are more risque or things that I would have never photographed like 10 years ago. I would have been like, yeah, no, that's something that I don't do. And I think that's a function of maybe social media, more common now, people seeing this online, or a big thing I noticed, like, I don't remember how many years this ago, was like the 50 Shades of Grey. Things like that can really put an impact on the culture, where a lot of women maybe would never think of doing that, but then they see this in the movie and then they kind of say, all right, well, maybe if she's doing it, I can do it too. So I think that there are sometimes social movies and stuff that can have impacts, and I see definitely spurts where certain poses come in, and I'm like, where'd you see that? And, it was in a movie or a TV show that people see these things, and that can spurn little changes. But I think keeping it cute and simple is the best way to go. But it seems like your people are happy. Seems like they enjoy your work. Your pictures are very nice. Everything is very nice on your website. So I know it's a lot of hard work to do that. And I see also a lot of yours are like before and afters. Most of your pictures are before and after. That's a lot of work to do too. And a lot of these women, do they want themselves no makeup, no hair, taking pictures like, that's not how I look every day?
I do get approval on those, yes, because I would want to be asked and think real hard about having myself out there with no hair and makeup, but they are very gracious.
They're okay with that?
Yeah, my clients are just, they're just anything you want, Dana. Anything is fine. So they're super gracious to me about that.
They come walking out. I always tell people to come in with no makeup. They're like, no photos of this face.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Like, we're in a beach town. It's super relaxed. So we don't do a lot of hair and makeup here as it is, so I think that helps. But I do, to your point about not like showing more, or photographers that show more. I remember feeling starting out that less was going to be more. Like, I felt like, oh, they need to be super racy, super sexy. Yeah. And that's just what they were coming to me for, kind of thing.
Right.
And have learned over time that, I would just wrap you up in a bed sheet, and just to see, the muscles in your back and that kind of thing would be way better than showing it all
out there. Yeah, and that's true. And it's more the quality too, and the experience. Or the bottom line of it is, if you can make it a good experience for the women from beginning to end, and it's people don't do that every single day, so it's new and exciting for them. But the result in the end is always what justifies the whole process. But I think if you have that knack to make women look pretty and beautiful, they don't have to necessarily be all out there. I could do cute portraits all day of women in t-shirt and jeans, and they're going to love it, But if you're just a horrible photographer, it doesn't matter what you're photographing someone in. It's not going to look good. It's not going to look good. So you're 100% on track there. That you don't have to force people down that road. And I always struggled a little bit, again, as being a guy. I was always very self-conscious. I didn't want to feel like I was pushing people to go too far, like, you're here with me, now take this off. So I always erred more on the side of being super, super cautious, rather than, and then I actually had a point where women were telling me, I kind of wanted to do something a little wilder. And then, I was like, I was getting that kind of pushback. So I'm like, all right. So I had to give people that option in my sessions. And not everybody wants to go in that direction, but some women do want to push things a little bit further, and that's okay. And I think what I've learned is that they're happy with it and they had a great time. And who am I to tell one person to do this or another person not to? So it's a little bit of finding your own way and a comfort level in what you're comfortable doing, and not pushing too hard. And also, I think at the same time, not keeping people from doing what they want to do. It's a little bit of a learning process.
Yeah, you kind of have to feel them out and get to know that person and see what's going to work really well for them. Because you learn after seeing their images, and you may hear comments at some point of, oh, I could have done more, because it feels vulnerable in the moment and they feel like they don't have anything on. But we know, looking at the image, that it's probably a very conservative image. And so you do have to find that balance of pushing them a little bit outside of their comfort zone, because they'll love the end result better. And so that's just, having learned that over time, is like, getting to know them, what they're comfortable with, pushing them just a little bit, but not too far.
Give them that experience. I like to have people a little bit nervous. That's part of the ride, I think. Not like too much, but just keeping them a little bit like, ooh, this is like a roller coaster, something
because
new.
Because now as a professional, exciting. They're going to love that in the end. And I don't want people being at the end of their session or then seeing their images and go, oh, I really wish I had done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I really wish I...
that? Yeah, that's a good question or a good thing that you brought up there because there's no going back, so like there's no like we can go back and do this again. So how do you know? Like I always push this up where I hear a lot of women now will do things that are just like topless again or just covering like shirt or using their hands. And I more or less, and you could, it's very weird to I'm like, do you want to? We do a lot of stuff like that. And I'm like, if you don't like it, you don't have to use it, but we're here. We're not going back and doing it again. Do you ever find yourself in that situation where you got to like push people just a little bit and then like, oh yeah, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah. I think at the beginning, there were only a couple times where someone saw their images and was like, they'll just say things like, oh, those aren't that bad, or, oh, those weren't as, risque as it felt in the moment. And so you kind of say, yeah, well, I guess you need to come in again and we can, you're more confident, you're more comfortable. Right. We can do some more fun stuff this time and take it in a whole new direction. But, it was, they weren't that big of a deal. They loved their images, of course. And that was just something that I kept in the back of my mind thinking, I don't want more people to walk away feeling like that. So you do feel them out throughout the session and again, push them where you think that you can. And I always remind them, it feels super vulnerable. I know that it does. Yeah. And then if I can show them the back of the camera, I will. And then I'll say, well, let's save the super revealing stuff that you might want to try at the end because you're going to feel way more confident at that point. Right. You're going to know me a little bit better. You're going to realize you're just having fun. I'm going to show you some images on the back of the camera. And then you're going to be ready to do, the nude, semi-nude stuff at the end. I promise these are everybody's favorites. You're going to love them. And like you said, if you don't have to buy them. Like if you see them when you come back, then nobody will know that they even existed. But
yeah, and that's the right strategy there, and pushing them a little bit there, I think, and you're right. And then they see this and they're glad that they did it ultimately, and they're happier. But that's a struggle in learning how far to push or not to push, and sometimes you have to give that little bit of nudge, and they're like, no, and then they're like, oh, I'm so glad you did that, and it works out.
And I always say these end up being everybody's favorites. I promise.
That's right.
They always are.
These are the ones. That's right.
You just learn through experience, and try and be the expert and comforter to them because they really are there to trust you and for you to do what it is that you do.
Yep, and that only comes through experience and doing it 8,000 times.
Exactly.
And I guess knowing what you can push. And you've been here a long, long time. We talked for a while, and I'm just going to ask you one or two more things. Like if you were saying someone was getting started in Boudoir, or if you had to go back now and get started again, what is like one piece of advice you think you'd give yourself to that you know now that you wish you would have known back when you were first starting?
I think just to trust myself and my gut a little bit more. I mean, I don't regret the process that I went through. I don't regret, doing everything that I did because I gained so much experience and took so many good things with me along the way to be where I am now. But I think just to take that leap, even though it feels really scary, I don't know, because I don't have too many regrets, but just to trust your gut and to learn. Like I gleaned as much as I could, took as many classes as I could, and don't be afraid to pay for things. I regret not getting maybe a more professional website off the bat. And I have paid for mentorship, which I don't regret whatsoever. I have paid for online classes, paid to travel to go to workshops, and those are
put that
invaluable.
Investment in. Yes. Don't forget, invest in yourself so that way it'll pay off down.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's all learning. It's all education. It's only going to help you get there a little bit faster, do your job a little bit better. And it's, if you look at it as like paying to go to college, you know, to get a degree, it's sort of the same thing. You're investing in yourself, in your education, and your business. And that is going to take you a lot further. And I'm so glad I did those things.
Yep. And it'll pay off in the long run. It all pays off. Words of wisdom from me.
I try.
And then before we go here, just one last thing. Where can everybody find where can they find your website, or where can they find you online if they wanted to take a peek at your work?
To peek at my minimal work online?
Your minimal galleries.
Yeah, so my website is Dana Laymon Photography, and it's spelled Laymon. And then on Instagram, it's just at Dana Laymon. And then Facebook is Dana Laymon Photography. And yeah, that's about everywhere.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now you're a new trendsetter with your minimal galleries. Now people are going to be going, now I have to copy what Dana's doing. She's
very,
so trendy.
Very secretive. Maybe that was my plan all along.
They're going to out ungallery you. I'm just going to have 2 photos in my gallery. And they're going to be women all the way covered. And like, Dana, you think you could do it? I could do better than you.
They probably could. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming out today. It was nice to meet you. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you.
And
You too.
Continued success. And thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.